Next, we welcome Heather Malenshek, SVP and CMO of Land O'Lakes.
All right. I like where Andrea's frozen there, Heather. Why don't you give everybody a little sense of give to us 20 seconds of what you do now in your career?
Yeah, so I'm the newly appointed CMO for the wonderful Land O'Lakes company based in Minnesota, and super excited to be here. I've been at the company about 3 months now, so really excited to talk.
Great. Just getting into it.
Yeah.
And your prior gig, because I think a lot of people will know that brand as well.
Yeah, so Chief Marketing Officer of a little known brand, Harley Davidson. So yeah, had the real fortune in my career of working with some amazing brands.
Heather, you continue this incredible lineup of really, incredible marketers. So I'm really excited to ask you this. From your perspective, which consumer behavior shifts will be key for brands to figure out and take advantage of to drive business growth?
Yeah, so really interesting listening to folks talking earlier today. I think that the big one I would say is there's so many social norms shifting, and I think it was might be Nessie that was saying earlier. I mean, we don't really know what's going to be happening in 6 months' time. We can all there's a lot of conjecture. What we've seen and what I think is going to be one of the permanent changes is the way people shop. So that's certainly our shift to digital was fast and furious. I think the other one is sort of the view of home. So is maybe less of a social place, more of a private place. So the way that people think about their homes is a little different. We've actually benefited from some of that. People are at home cooking, baking, and so that's part of what our efforts are. Have been really good. We've sold more butter this year, I think, than we've ever sold. The other piece that's really interesting, and it kind of connects back to what you were talking about previously with Brad, is this idea of digital and the shift to digital. So, we are a farmer-owned co-op. So most people would know us as a butter company, but we're actually a farmer-owned co-op. So we're owned by farmers across America, and a big part of our role is supporting those farmers. So as you think about, we really have this farmer to fork structure. So all the way from rural community and the farmer and the seeds and the soil health, all the way through to, butter and the products on your table. And what's been really interesting about this digital piece is, and it relates back to some of the work that we're doing at Land O'Lakes, is there's a huge digital divide in this country that we sometimes forget about. So we can sit here today and we take somewhat for granted the fact that we have high-speed internet. So we're able to work from home, or we're having this great conversation, or on Zoom all the time, when in fact there are about 18 million Americans who don't have access to high-speed internet. So just think about that for a second. You've got kids who are in rural communities who are not able to do distance learning. People can't get access to medical help, or farmers who don't have the data that they need to be able to run profitably. So we're actually part of we're leading a coalition of companies, actually Microsoft included, around this thing called American Connection Project, which is really trying to bridge that digital divide and push for funding and policy around getting broadband into some of these communities, rural and underserved. So it's one of those things, I think, as we think about what's happening this year and what's going to be really important going into next year, that I want to bring to the table.
Heather, you're only 100 days in, it sounds like. Actually, I'm going to go in a different angle because I'm trying to bring as much value in this program as possible. What should individuals here that are taking leadership roles in new organizations think about in their first 100 days, right? You've ascended in your career, so I'm sure this has happened more than once. You're in the prime of your career, from my opinion, at this point. So what have you learned? Do you have any tried and true principles of things that people should consider when they first enter a new leadership role in an organization that they haven't been in before, no matter how much homework they did or prep to be part of that company, excuse me?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a challenging time to come in and be a new leader in a company. But I would say, I mean, my first and foremost is always connecting with the team. And so that's been no different in how I've come into Land O'Lakes. So really spending time with the team, figuring out the talent on your team. And I don't mean direct reports, I mean all levels of the organization. So I've spent my first 100 days really getting to know the team, how we work, and my peers in the organization, and spending time with them as well. So I think connecting on a human level I think with everybody has been really important. And this, the Zoom environment has been great. And I've been the benefactor, I think, of the team has been working really well virtually. So I've waltzed in September and they're so good at it that that's helped me get ahead of the game. But it's really about connecting on a human level. And I think particularly now, everybody is feeling this pandemic in lots of different ways. You've got, we talk a lot about parents who have distance learning and have to be teachers. So you got to take that into account. But you've also got people on your team who are single and living alone and feeling levels of incredible isolation. So I think it's just really important to connect on a human level and really understand the dynamic there.
Themes of this talk: speed, contextual creative, cost of creative, your overall kind of state of the union of 2020, things that around those themes that stood out, or anticipations or affirmations or considerations for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, agile is such an overused term, and I know you talk about this a lot, right? It drives me a little crazy. We need to be more agile, and I think we do. But I look at our operating model, and I'm looking at that with the team now, and I think we really, some cases, you have to slow down to speed up. So really, we're really looking at our processes and driving out some of the inefficiencies. It's kind of what Deborah was talking about earlier too, to enable us to be to accelerate our progress, I would say, and be in that space. So I think that's a big part of it. Cost to creative, I am blessed with a company that has so many stories to talk about that, storytelling is a big part of it. And I think the authenticity comes through when you don't have these big cinematic productions, but actually in just telling those human stories. So we are probably more down that path, and I see us, continuing to do that as well. I think the other piece, Gary, is just, we talk a lot about brand relevance, and I think cultural relevance today is critical. So, cultural competency of an organization, and that goes way beyond marketing, but really staying to, and I loved what Essie was talking about in terms of human centricity, because it is about that. It's about really understanding what else is going on in people's lives and how you fit in there. But it relates to how we hire people and how HR think about it, your brand, supply chain, everything. Everybody in the company really needs to be culturally competent these days, and that's a full-time ongoing effort. That's not something you do a study for once a year. That's something that you really need to be. It's more of a breaking news capability than making a documentary, right? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a big place. And I think about, sometimes we miss the cultural insights. Market research companies, traditional market research companies, I think, miss the boat on that. Oftentimes they'll be doing studies in a more traditional way. They'll completely miss the social impact that the work might have. So I think we need to really think differently about how we develop those insights as well. I think sometimes the best way to think about what's going to happen over the next 5 years is by understanding missteps or things that really worked well in the last 5 years. When you think back of the real revolution of this device and marketing as you know it, you've probably evolved a lot as a marketer. Yeah. What stands out as the thing that you really feel like, 6 years ago, I had this point of view, and wow, has the last 5 years really taught me that I wasn't on the right side of history there, because it's empowering. I love when I'm wrong. I love having conviction. I'm passionate, but I mean it. I love it because it's like the game is humbling you and you're like, okay, no matter how much, and so anything stand out when I say that maybe the last 2, 3, 4 years, maybe something that happened in a Harley or you as a consumer, anything stand out? Because I think sometimes that pattern recognition helps for the future. Yeah, I think I think the shift to mobile, because I think in some ways digital always made total sense to me. What I always worry about, to be honest, Gary, is I worry that we overcorrect and swing the pendulum. You go too far, like we start doing AR executions before the consumer's there. Yeah, before they're ready for it, right? It's the biggest reason, Heather, that I get upset when people are like, oh, you're a disruptor, I'm like, no, I am practical. Right. What you believe in is yesterday. I have no interest in tomorrow other than keeping an eye about it. But what I'm thinking and passionate about is storytelling, building brand, creating results today. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I really worry about this overcorrection. So even though, and as we talk about the digital shift that's happened, the significant shift that's happened this year, there will be a point where I don't think that means that we never, ever, ever again go down some of the more traditional routes, because that'll happen too. So I'm always wary about overcorrecting and swinging the pendulum way too far. So
I think that's right. I think that's a huge mistake by some people that are super progressive, and then you've got the middle is a beautiful place. Heather, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.